We will be taking notes over solving one-step equations. Our essential question will be, how do you apply inverse operations to solve equations? To use my handwriting, I do not have a stylus for this, so I'm having to use my fingertips. It's quite challenging. The first thing we're going to talk about is steps to solve equations. I will list 5 here. So number 1 is combining like terms. Number 2 is distribute, and then you need to combine like terms again if you so need to anyway. Number 3 is move all the variables to the same side. 4 will be to add or subtract the constant. 5 will be to multiply or divide by the coefficient. For today's purposes, we're only going to be using 4 or 5. You will not always use all 5 of these steps to solve every equation. The more complex they are, the more steps you will need. The less complex, the less steps. So today we will only use 4 or 5. The first thing that we want to look at is what do we do if there's something added to your x? So if we look at the problem x plus 2 equals 4, the first thing we need to look at is this is addition. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. So that means that we're going to, instead of add 2, we're going to subtract 2. And whatever is done to one side must be done to the other. Now the plus 2 and the minus 2, they cancel each other. And so we just bring the x down. 4 minus 2 equals 2. So this means that our x equals 2 in this problem. Next, we're going to look at subtracting from the x. What do we do? So what if we have the problem x minus 2 equals 4? The inverse of minus is plus. So right now it says minus 2 to that x, so to get rid of it, we're going to add 2. And whatever you do to one side must be done to the other. Now the negative 2 plus 2, that gives me 0, so they cancel. Bring the x down. 4 plus 2 is 6. So the answer to our problem is x equals 6. Next we're going to look at what happens if we have something multiplied by the x. So what if we had the problem 3x equals 6? The inverse of multiplying is dividing. So since it's 3 times x, we're going to do the opposite, which is divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 is just 1, which means the 3's cancel. And 1x is just x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So the answer to our problem is x equals 2. Don't forget to fill in your summary now that we've filled up a whole page. Next, we're going to look at what happens when we have a number divided by x. So we want to look at the problem x divided by 3 equals 2. The inverse of division is multiplication. So since the x is being divided by 3, we're going to multiply by 3. Being done to one side must be done to the other. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. And 1x is really just x. 2 times 3 is 6. So the answer to our problem is x equals 6. Next, we're going to look at multiplying by a fraction. How do you get rid of that? We are going to look at the problem 2/3 x equals 4. The inverse of a fraction is its reciprocal. So you just flip it and multiply both sides. So we're going to multiply the left by 3 over 2. Whatever is done to one side must be done to the other. 3/2 times 2/3 gives you 1, because 3 times 2 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 over 6 is just 1. So the left cancels. And 4 times 3/2 is multiplied by looking at 4 times 3, which is 12, and then 12 divided by 2 is 6. You could put all that in a calculator as well. And our answer is x equals 6 to this problem. Lastly, we're going to look at what happens if you have an x squared. So the problem we're going to look at is x squared equals 9. The inverse of a square is a square root. So to undo x squared, we take the square root of it. To undo 9, we take the square root of it. The square root of x squared is just x. The square root of 9 is 3. The answer to our problem is x equals 3. Don't forget to go down and write in your summary.